So my initial reaction to when the doctors actually came in and told me that they were giving me 2 weeks to live, at first it was like shock, like, oh my gosh, I'm actually gonna die. But then I started realizing that it didn't matter what I did in the next 2 weeks, that if that was all I had left, I needed to be doing something that I wanted to do and not preparing for everybody else and worrying about everybody else. I needed to focus on myself. So when I was 17 and a senior in high school, I started getting really, really sick. And at first we thought it was just a cold because I had like a cough and, you know, the runny nose and like the typical cold symptoms that you would have. But then it started to get worse to the point where even going upstairs was like really starting to take a toll on my breathing. And then it just kept getting progressively worse to the point where I wasn't breathing at all. And when we were rehearsing for a band competition, I actually ended up passing out. And my parents got there and they were like, okay, well, we want to take you to a hospital that actually knows anything, because the hospital in the town we were at is really small. So we drove an hour to this other hospital, and they basically said the same things, that they thought it was just kind of like a cold and that I was just overworking myself. So they wanted me to take a break from all of my band activities. But it didn't matter because it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And so then eventually I ended up going back to the hospital because I passed out twice after that. And they were trying to figure out what was going on, and they actually never figured out what happened. They figured it was probably something that was attacking my immune system, which is why I wasn't getting any better, but it was also something that was attacking my lungs. So they kind of thought it was bronchitis, but they weren't really sure why bronchitis would be that strong and would cause me to pass out as many times as I did. The rate at which my lungs were failing was like extremely high. So they like ran a whole bunch of tests and they looked at all my lungs and like the fluid in your lungs, and there was so much fluid in my lungs that they just kept pumping it out constantly. And I got to the point where there was so much scar tissue in there that they didn't think I was getting enough oxygen in there at all, and that's why I kept passing out. So the reason I can't do some of the things on my bucket list is because some of them actually require you to be like super healthy. So like skydiving, I couldn't do that because of the pressure changes and the fact that it would be outside and it would just really cause me to have breathing problems. And then like mountain climbing and stuff like that, that actually has a big impact on me. It's like even hiking sometimes gets really tough. I went hiking a while ago and actually had to go back down the mountain because it just gets so hard for me to breathe sometimes. And then there's a lot of places I'd really like to visit in the winter, but they get too cold, so I actually can't go because I end up getting like fluid in my lungs and then they think it could freeze. So just things like that that I just can't risk going to do. I realized in high school that I really wanted to go into film because my grandpa and I, that's what we always did. And so I just decided I was going to go for it. If I lived, I was just going to do whatever I had to do to get a degree and go do something related to film. And so that's what I did. I graduated high school, went to college, and now I'm at Idaho State University, and I'll graduate in December of 2017. Yeah, it definitely opened my eyes because I started to see, like, okay, everybody's only here for a certain amount of time. And so I started wanting to like travel more and go see things and be with my family. And so I've traveled a lot, and I go back home and spend a couple weeks in Michigan all the time. But when I figure out what I want to do, I just go for it, because after everything that happened, you have to just go for it because there's no time to waste. I would just tell people who are kind of going through something similar not to give up and to do what you want to do, even if it's not what's recommended, because at the end of the day, it's your life. So you should live it how you want to live it.